iHeartRadio sports station. Guaranteed human.
This kid gets in the game. I see him audibling at the line of scrimmage. Granted, he had a couple false starts that I always put on the quarterback in the New York game. I also saw a couple fumble exchanges that are a problem. I put that on him in the Kansas City game. But if you're basing everything on performance, I think this kid has won the job, provided he closes it out in Jacksonville with another solid performance.
Former Bucs coach Jon Gruden was on with me yesterday. A number of really interesting tidbits coming out of that, and that was Jon being very, very complimentary with some high praise for undrafted free agent Jaylen Daniels out of Kansas, who has really opened up some eyes this summer and through the first two preseason games. So, could he be quarterback 2 behind Baker Mayfield once the season starts? And why and how did he go undrafted? Welcome back. Good afternoon, Tampa Bay. 4:05 on your ride home. Hour number 3 of The Drive, driven by Moss Nissan, live inside the Rude Air and Water Studios of WDAE, powered locally by Ferguson HVAC. Great to have you with us. At the bottom of the hour, by the way, more of your calls and texts coming up. At the bottom of the hour, fill in the blank. Blank will lead the Buccaneers in sacks in 2026. Todd, I don't know. Is it Ruben Bane? Is it Yaya Diaby? Is it Kalijah Kancey? Buccaneers had a little bit of a rough go today with their joint practice up in Jacksonville. They have another one tomorrow, and then the preseason finale Friday night in Jacksonville. So how does this Buccaneer team look? New deal for Vita Vea. What about Baker's deal? Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the WDA hotline. We are honored to have him back here on the program. He's got a new gig, and it's well-deserved. Our guy, NFL draft analyst, NFL analyst, host of the NFL Stock Exchange, a great podcast, as well as the newest member of NFL Media, Trevor Sikkema, is back with us here on The Drive on WDAE. Trevor, congratulations on your new job, my man. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great, TKras. Thank you. I appreciate it. And no matter what my job title has been, I always love coming on the show. So I appreciate you having me, my friend.
I'm telling you, man, when you get big, and you're getting big, just make sure us little people, every once in a while, you throw us a crumb or a breadcrumb or a cookie every once in a while. By the way, it was a pleasure meeting your parents a few weeks ago. I met them down at downtown St. Pete over at Noble Tavern. Great people, by the way.
I appreciate it. I'll definitely relay it to them. And that's not the first time I heard about that interaction, because my dad immediately got home and called me. He was like, "Hey, we saw TKras and we were hanging out with them a bunch." So trust me, it made their day as well. I always love when the people in my life get to, worlds collide a little bit like that. So that was awesome.
Worlds collide like George Costanza, but this was in a very good way, though. It was an awesome pleasure meeting your parents. I can see what kind of respectable young man you became, and I then met your parents. I'm like, okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. You heard Jon Gruden. He was on with me yesterday, and I talked to him about a number of different subjects. You heard him have high praise about Jaylen Daniels. I want to ask you, Trevor Sikkema, the draft analyst. I've been, racking my brain about this for the last 2 weeks because I've been out of camp. I've been watching Jaylen Daniels, the dual ability, live arm, played in 49 games at Kansas, started 45 of them. How did Jaylen Daniels go undrafted, Trevor? Can you answer me that?
Yeah, look, I've been a huge Jaylen Daniels fan for years now. I remember, boy, this is 2-3 years ago. I had him as one of my top 5 quarterbacks when we were going through summer scouting. I think it might have been for the 2025 draft. But unfortunately, since then, he's dealt with a lot of injuries, specifically a back injury. And, you've covered this sport long enough. We've seen this, whether it's been some Bucs quarterbacks as well as quarterbacks around the league. When you get back injuries, man, that's not good in this game, especially for a position like quarterback where you got to put your body, specifically a lot of your upper and lower back, into what you do. And so with Daniels, he missed time due to that back injury. And I think there was a lot of worry that, hey, does he still have that juice in his arm, now that he was healthy and now that that back was good to go? Because when I saw him, I think I was watching him as like a sophomore, like an underclassman. I remember looking at him go, same reaction that a lot of Bucs fans are having right now. dual threat ability. The kid's got a cannon. I mean, look, he's undersized for the NFL. 6'1", it's 14th percentile. To about 220 pounds, it's 43rd percentile. So you get a quarterback who's a little bit shorter. The NFL already doesn't like, betting on quarterbacks who are small. And then you got the back injury that forced him to miss some games over the last couple of seasons. So I think those two things were enough for very clearly every team in the NFL to just say, not a priority for us. If we can get him as an undrafted free agent, cool, but we're not going to use a draft pick on him. Obviously, it's to Tampa's advantage because he's been able to come in right away and showcase, in my opinion, the ability that he showed 2-3 years ago, really before all of this back injury stuff started. So to me, it's never been a talent question with Jaylen Daniels. I felt like he has always had the talent to be able to showcase his stuff at the pro level. It was just, hey, is he going to be healthy? And then, there are some tendencies where he was a little more aggressive than he needed to be in college and just making sure that he's not putting the ball in harm's way. But in terms of him earning this QB2 job, yeah, I think that he's right there, if not fully earned it already with one preseason game left to go.
Wow, that's incredible. And he's had quite the summer. The Buccaneers are going to have 2 undrafted free agents, Trev, that make this team because Jaylen Daniels is already there as QB2 or 3. And Aiden Garnes, a kid out of Arizona, who also went undrafted, has been turning heads throughout the preseason and training camp, had a pick 6 against the Jets. I think he's made the team too.
I think so too. I don't think there's any question about it with him making the team. If you ask me, it just it comes down to, hey, is this somebody that you can actually put in there for some meaningful snaps once we get into the regular season? Because, I've been on a lot of podcasts, and of course, being an NFC South and a Bucs guy, they ask me, hey, what do you think about the Bucs' chances this upcoming season? And honestly, if the team is fully healthy, there's a lot to believe in, right? The defensive line could be revamped, and everything that they have, going for them, the combination potentially of Yaya Diaby and Ruben Bane and Kalijah Cansey and David Walker and Vita Vea. I mean, that's just an incredible combination. You could just throw so many different things at teams in a way where they couldn't last year. I look at, okay, if the offensive line stays healthy, I still think they got the receivers. If Baker kind of bounces back a little bit, Bucky's looking good. The big question mark, TKras, and I know you guys have talked about this plenty yourself, it's the secondary, mainly at the cornerback spots. They know that they've got a good one in Jacob Parrish, but Parrish was sort of a, hey, we'd love for him to play in the nickel. We love how he operates in space, but we're in a situation where it looks like he's going to have to start as one of these outside corners, and somebody's got to take the bull by the horns and start opposite him on the outside. So they've got obviously a couple of names that they can go to, guys who have started for them before, guys who they have faith in that they can get it done at the pro level in the regular season. But Garnes is another one of those players who he is playing so well right now in a depth chart that will allow somebody to climb all the way up to maybe a starting spot. He's another undrafted free agent story that, yeah, I don't think it's just a matter of him making the team. It might be he's playing meaningful snaps, maybe even starting at some point this year. That's how good it feels like he's playing.
Trevor Sikkema now with NFL Media is with me here on The Drive on WDAE. The talent is certainly there for the Buccaneers. I think they're a 10-win team, Trev. I like their schedule. If they stay healthy and the O-line is back to being, a dominant type of version of itself, I think it's 10 wins for this team. What say you?
Yeah, I think it's most likely that they're somewhere between the 9 and 11 win range, if you ask me. Now, can things go off the rails? Yeah, of course, you get injuries, and if Baker doesn't have a great year, then obviously it can go a little bit less than that. But I think that when you look at this Buccaneers team, they feel like the highest floor team in the division, right? I think people will talk about, what the Saints could potentially be. Some people think that of the Panthers as well, although the Panthers are already racking up all sorts of important injuries. But I think that the Buccaneers are one of those teams that has the highest floor. So, if it's not going to be this high-speed race to the finish with, 12, 13 wins, I think it just becomes more and more likely that Tampa ends up winning this division again. I just think that they're too talented, they're too experienced, and if you got the right chemistry between the coordinators and both sides of the ball, the rosters are there for them. And I think they did a really, really nice job addressing most of the concerns that you would have had from this team, albeit away from, injuries that they dealt with last year. I think the roster is just really solid. There's not really a lot of holes or major question marks on this team that haven't already been proven in other years that they've been in Tampa Bay. So, yeah, I think that something around that 10-win mark to me is most likely for this team. And I really do think that 10, 11 wins the division again this year. So we'll see if that's Tampa.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did you make of the Vita Vea deal? It seems like a sound compromise. You know, they gave more money for this year, and they got him for one more year next year. I don't think the Buccaneers were too comfortable going too much beyond that, but considering everything else, I think the Buccaneers did a nice job of extending him under their terms, and Vita Vea seems to be happy because they threw him some guaranteed money.
Yeah, 100%. And look, you know, the Mayfield situation, contract situation too. I mean, you could throw both of these into the same bucket, in my opinion. The team went about this exactly the way that they should have. And, you know, I think that a lot of fans, you know, they'll listen to the players when they're talking. You know, it doesn't feel good whenever they're holding out or they're, you know, in front of the microphone saying that they're not happy with the team, especially when you know that they're going to mean a lot towards the success moving forward. But the business part of this, you know, where people say like, you know, sometimes business is hard in this business of the NFL. Sometimes it has a little bit to do of you got to play the game. And I think that the players and their agents appropriately played the game to try to get, you know, public perception on their side and really put some pressure on the organization. But I think the Buccaneers went about this with both of these players exactly the way that they should. I never felt as though that Vita Vea was ever going to get traded. He's too important to this Todd Bowles defense. He's too important to this team winning the division, and he knows that too. And, you know, when you get these players that speak so highly of, you know, the organization and whether they're drafted there or not, which it always feels like the Bucs are trying to do their absolute best to take care of their homegrown talent because they've done a nice job of that over the last, really throughout Jason Licht's entire tenure. You go to Vita, and Vita's, you know, he's not really somebody who's ever, you know, talked down to Tampa or on things like that. And so it's very strange. You know, when contract time comes around and all of a sudden they're speaking, you know, unhappy things about the organization, you go, all right, is this just a game you're playing? And I kind of felt like it was just the game that they were playing. I never felt like he was going to get traded. He's too important. And I think that all sides kind of came to the compromise that they want. Vita wanted at least one more year of getting paid some pretty good money because, you know, he's over 30 now, and you just don't know how much longer you're going to play this game, especially at a high level. But I can tell you, from what he did last year, that strength is still there. He is still one of the most powerful defensive linemen in the NFL, and so to make him happy and have him on the team for the next 2 years, I think that's the appropriate window for this team, and I think they did a good job sort of negotiating this the way that they needed to.
What about Baker? I'm not sure if anything happens before the season, and the Buccaneers have been going back and forth with his agent, I guess, on 2-year deals, but what do you think ends up happening there?
Yeah, look, I don't think that they should do a deal with him before the season. I'll be honest. And that's not to sound overly harsh against Mayfield, but it has a little bit to do with him, right? I mean, when you look at him last year, and okay, yes, he was playing hurt. There were some circumstances outside of his control, but he also was not playing well in the second half of the season. And unfortunately for Mayfield, his contract situation right now is coming up against a lot of future unknown for this team. If they win the division and Baker Mayfield is playing well and they're back in the playoffs, the money is going to be there. The organization loves him. They brought him in for a reason. They believed in him for a reason. They've seen what he is like when he is at his best. The money will be there for Baker Mayfield if he plays well, and it will be there for him in Tampa. I know that is something that can manifest if he plays well. But the problem is, the reason why you cannot extend him before this season is not just the unknown that I just kind of spoke about on his side of things, but if this team doesn't win the division, if they are lower than the standard that they have for themselves this year, a lot of house cleaning is going to happen. They're going to probably have a new head coach. They're going to probably turn over a lot of, you know, certain players and older players that are on the roster. And the thing is that if you are turning over a head coach a year from now, and you just signed Baker Mayfield to a 2-year extension where he is basically your quarterback for another 2 years after this, maybe a year and a half, you know, depending on the guaranteed money, you're going to have to go into the coaching market and say, hey, you've got to deal with Baker Mayfield. And if they're not winning the division this year, then chances are Mayfield was probably inconsistent again. So they have to look out for themselves, yes, in the short term, but also the long term, and they've got to be able to plan for what can be. That's why I say the money will be there if he plays well, but also what maybe you don't want to happen. You got to be ready for that. And I think that that's why there's no deal with him. It's not all on Mayfield, but unfortunately it just is the timing of where this entire franchise is at right now. So again, I think the Buccaneers went about these contracts with Mayfield and Vita Vea exactly the way they should have. And I think that letting him play this year, having that little chip on his shoulder, we know that that's never a bad thing for Baker Mayfield either. So I think that they played this the way that they needed to.
And it's never a bad thing with that guy. And if you look up and down the schedule, I mean, he's going to be on a vengeance tour, which begins the opener against Joe Burrow and the Bengals in Cincinnati. Trevor Sikkema, now with NFL Media, is with me. So I've been out of training camp a whole bunch, and myself and so many other people have been watching number 3 kind of doing his thing. He's out there way before practice begins. He's out there after practice ends. He's putting in the work. I mean, he is very serious about his craft. Ruben Bane Jr. has been everything that we've thought that he would be. He's been advertised as the guy. And I don't know how he felt at 15. You and I talked about that the last time you were on, but I think he's going to make a lot of people pay. And you saw what he did in terms of the hump move over the weekend. What is the realistic expectation for Ruben Bane? How many sacks? I mean, everyone's always fixated on sacks, right? How many sacks this year for Ruben Bane, you think?
Yeah, I don't know what the number exactly is, but going back to sort of what you were talking about earlier in the show, I think he's the most likely player to lead this team in sacks. And I think that probably is somewhere around double digits. I don't want to put too much pressure on rookies, but, somewhere between anywhere from 8 to 12. Yeah, I think that's absolutely realistic. And that'd be a hell of a rookie year for him and the rest of this defensive line. I mean, if he's able to finish at the quarterback and somewhere between 8 and 12 sacks to end the season, I think that just means the rest of the defensive line is eating as well. And, it's so funny that you highlight the hump move that he put on this past weekend. That was actually an exact example that I gave for why I think the arm length discussion is not one that you can just have in a vacuum. You cannot just sit here and say, short arms, not good, you got to write them off. Because if how that player plays does not have to do with them winning with length, then it's not nearly as big of a negative as sometimes we make it out to be. Ruben Bane wins with leverage. He wins with power. He wins with leg drive. He wins with technique. In no part of that did I say that he was winning with a long arm move or that he was making sure that his two-handed swipes were maximized at his length, because some of these guys, they have to win with length, because if offensive tackles at the NFL level get hands on them, it's over. They don't have the counters. They don't have the hand speed. They don't have the power to be able to break when offensive linemen can get their hands on them. So if they lose that length battle, it's over. I'm not worried about that. I've never been worried about that with Ruben Bane. The second I watched offensive linemen get hands on him at the college level, he was hand fighting, he was swiping, he was chopping, he was ripping, he was countering to make sure that these offensive linemen were not able to stay blocked and engaged on him. And so it's a move like that we saw that obviously went viral, that everybody was going crazy. That's the exact move that you should have been pointing to as his potential before the draft. Because why? It means that you're winning with leverage and leg drive and technique, and just so much of why Ruben Bane is a great football player, so far beyond the arm length discussion that was, quite frankly, silly before the draft. Even with the arm length included as a negative, no way this guy should have lasted until 15, and the Bucs are going to reap the rewards of it.
And maybe we'll find out one day as to why that fall happened, whether it was the arms, or I know there was a car accident a couple of years ago, maybe a combination of the both. Who knows? But I can tell you, that hump move that he pulled in the preseason game, we've been seeing that regularly at camp. He's done that to Luke Gedeke. He did that once to Gedeke, I think, 2 weeks ago, and Gedeke went back to, the huddle, kind of shaking his head a little bit. So this guy is the real deal, and I can't wait to see him out there in a regular season setting. It's all going to start on Sunday, September the 13th. Buccaneers at Cincinnati to open the season. You start your new gig with NFL Media, next week? Tell us about it.
Oh, we're already in full swing, baby. We got a couple of shows that are coming out this week, but mainly the NFL Pro YouTube channel. It's myself and Brett Coleman. We do start our regularly scheduled episodes coming out next week. It's going to be every Monday and Friday throughout the NFL season, breaking down all the latest trends, what's standing out, but not just from a headline perspective, a deep dive perspective into sort of the why things are happening the way that they are around the league. So I can't wait to get started with that.
I can't wait to see it. Congratulations. Well deserved. Keep up the great work. We'll be watching you on NFL Media, and we'll be talking with you soon. Thank you, Trev.
I appreciate it, TKras. Anytime, my friend.
You got it. That's the great Trevor Sikkema, NFL Media. The knowledge, man. Such a hard worker. We saw it when he was here, and now he's on to bigger and better things with NFL Media. Could not be happier for him. Great parents, too. Just a great foundation. You can always tell a person by their parents and how respectable his parents were, and I had the pleasure of meeting them down at Noble Tavern a few weeks back. Great, great people. And he's right about Ruben Bane. I'm still dumbfounded, like, how he felt at 15, and he was upset. We all saw draft night, like, with the cap and everything else, and he was not happy because that precipitous drop cost him millions of dollars. And he's been thinking about that. It's been stewing inside of him. You can tell by the way he goes about his business on the practice field. Like he put another hump move today on a Jags offensive lineman. The Buccaneers just put out a video. I don't know if you saw Chris Mathis. He put a hump move on a Jags tackle and went by him like he wasn't even standing there. The guy's got crazy ability, and he's got these heavy, violent hands that we saw at the University of Miami. Yeah, the arms are not long, but he knows how to use those hands, and it's violent. And the bend, the athleticism, the burst, it's tantalizing what we can see out of this guy. I'm really interested. I'm really looking forward to seeing him once the lights come on for real at Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, you better be watching himself because that Cincinnati O-line is not great. It's not.
Yeah, since his first year there with Cincinnati, they've ranked an average of 27th in the league as an offensive line.
I would be concerned if I'm Joe Burrow. And I think early on in that game, you'll see. They will see what we've been seeing here at every training camp practice, that this Ruben Bane is a problem. 888-388-0957. Text at 82945. More of your calls, your texts coming up. We're on the air to 5:30. And then Chris Mathis is coming back. He's got Bullpen by Committee, whatever that show's called, to get you set for the Rays and the Tigers tonight with Ian Seymour on the mound. All right, when we come back, Blank will lead the Buccaneers in sacks. Fill in the blank is coming up next.
From the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys Traffic Center, call 1-800